Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you to give a particularly warm Caithness welcome to the Right Honourable Alec Salmond, MP, MSP, First Minister for Scotland.
It's a great pleasure to be here with you today to welcome the vital work that's been done to regenerate the Caithness area. Now, I want to focus, since I promised I would do it earlier in the year, on the progress that's being made this very day, for that matter, in terms of bringing our dream of marine energy in extraordinary, almost unimaginable quantities into a reality in this part of Scotland, the Saudi Arabia of marine renewable power. And let me say, since I always try to answer questions, that every agency, whether it be SEPA, whether it be planning authorities, whether it be Scottish National Heritage, have their statutory responsibilities to fulfil. And it would ill behove any minister to try and cut across these statutory responsibilities. But we all operate within a framework, and part of the framework for economic development of Scotland and the north of Scotland is to ensure that we can harness the huge resources from our sea, and therefore, at the end of the day, nothing will be done which can impede the progress towards that objectives. All of us, agency or not, operate within that framework. Not something that's always been evident to every authority of government, but nonetheless something which is willingly signed up to now. And I'm sure the Environment Minister, in answering your concerns, will be able to reiterate that message. Now, I want to focus on the outstanding opportunities. It is, of course, a good day to do it. As you know, today the initial leasing of areas of the Pentland Firth is being announced, a time frame in which we can start deploying devices. The, I think, wonderfully named Landstrom generators are being announced to go for planning permission by Scottish Power through a new subsidiary, Hammerfest UK. One committed to Scottish production, and I hope here local production of their devices. And within very, very few years, we are now going to see the deployment of tidal devices, and therefore the jobs, the energy, the economic boost that will accompany that deployment. And I am absolutely delighted. I read it in the Press and Journal, wrote a fantastic editorial. The Press and Journal always writes fantastic editorial. Every single editorial I read in the Press and Journal is fantastic, as it is a fantastic newspaper. I see them here. And as a wonderful foresight, and they've detailed and they've done it extremely well. And the editorial says, in welcoming the moves that are being formally announced today, it says this will help us in Scotland in our progress towards self-sufficiency in energy. Well, we do produce 10 times as much oil as we consume, 6 times as much gas as we consume. We export, in a bad year, 30% more electricity than we consume. But I'm sure we'll get to self-sufficiency one day. Ladies and gentlemen, what is happening, and this is the epicentre of what the potential is not getting to self-sufficiency or not fulfilling our own energy requirements. What is going to happen here is the steps along the way to becoming the powerhouse of Europe in marine energy terms. In the announcements being made today by ourselves and the Crown Estate's initial leasing, there's a kind of modest estimate of the area to be leased as within very, very few years' time, perhaps having about 700 megawatts. Believe me, this is only part of the picture. And the real picture that will follow on as these devices demonstrate their economic credibility is not 700 megawatts, but 10, perhaps 20, perhaps 30 times that amount of electricity in this area alone from marine resources alone. And to put that into context, that energy in itself is about 4 times Scotland's entire electricity requirement for energy. So what we're talking here is a generation potentially of vast quantities of power. And to make a reality, just 1 or 2 things have to happen, and they're starting to fit into place, and we've made the most enormous progress since the Energy Alliance and John and myself met in Edinburgh earlier this year. The route map is there, the deployments are there. We already have, as many people will know, working from the Orkney Islands, the first grid-connected tidal device. The open hydro device is already grid-connected. That means it has had to demonstrate its reliability, its ability to produce power over a period of years. But progress is being made, but one or two things are absolutely essential. And the first of these, when you think about it, is to make sure that whether it's the Scottish National Heritage and their statutory obligations, whether it's the Crown Estates and their title to the foreshore and the seabed, whether it's the planning requirements of the local council or the Scottish Government, we've all got to work together, and indeed we are working together with the regeneration initiatives to make sure that these things don't be an obstacle to an infant industry as it starts its deployment. That seems to me absolutely essential. And I think we can record a substantial degree of progress this year in making sure these are not obstacles. As I often say to people, there is obviously a tremendous amount of money and resource to be made out of this, but perhaps we should make sure that nothing is done to strangle the gosling that might lay the golden egg in years to time. Let's get this industry up on its feet and running and employing people and being productive. We can start fighting about the economic benefits a bit thereafter. And the second thing, of course, is a kind of traditional argument for me now after a year and a bit. We've got to think about the rebalancing of the charges. If the energy is in Scotland, if the energy is in the north of Scotland, if the energy is in the Pentland Firth, it is perverse indeed to charge people substantial sums to connect